small intestine. We're chemically breaking up those macromolecules, polypeptides, polysaccharides, lipids, into their smaller molecules, and then we need to absorb them. And so absorbing a lot of surface area will allow a lot of the digested food in the intestine to contact the surface and be absorbed on into the rest of the body. Going with that, you have a fairly extensive blood supply. Lots of little capillaries in there. So these narrow bumps are known as villi, and on the surface of the villi are yet smaller bumps known as microvilli. The villi themselves are quite tiny, and so obviously the microvilli, those are villi small. Turns out that the total surface area of the lining of your small intestine is comparable to that of a whole tennis court. You'd have a hard time sticking a tennis court inside you, but if it's folded enough, that space is represented in your intestine. That gives lots of surface, again, to absorb the nutrients. Meanwhile, other enzymes are being secreted by accessory organs. The liver secretes a chemical known as bile, and this helps to break up lipids, rather like soap does. It's not enzymes, but we have particular salts and pigments in there. And then as the liver secretes it, it will be stored in the gallbladder and then released down through a duct into the intestine. Also, as blood comes through the liver, nutrients, if the liver detects that there is lots of nutrients coming in, you've just eaten, well, a little after just eaten, it's made it through the stomach, and your intestines breaking things down, getting quite a lot of these amino acids coming in, let's store them away. Or, if the liver detects, I'm not detecting much at all glucose in the bloodstream, let's release some from storage. So it regulates that. Again, if there's extra glucose, sugar in the blood, then the liver can build glycogen, a polysaccharide used in animals as opposed to starch in plants. Amino acids, if there's more of them than we need for building proteins, then the liver can take the carbon-based part of that and turn it into fatty acids for storage of the energy there, and the amino part, the nitrogen bit of our amino acid, can be discarded as urea. Iron, certain vitamins will be stored in the liver. So on the one hand, this means eating liver gives you a good dose of vitamins. Living off of liver, however, can potentially give you too much of some vitamins. Also, a variety of toxic chemicals. The liver is involved in processing those. One of the most prominent of those is ethyl alcohol. Ethanol is a toxin. If you drink too much at once, you're dead. It is possible to get alcohol poisoning, especially somebody small drinking a large quantity of strong alcohol. That can be potentially fatal. Even if it's not fatal, getting too much alcohol at a time doesn't feel good. You can get things like, say, a hangover because of the toxic effects of the ethanol. But the liver can gradually break down that ethanol and turn it into other things. So, small amount of ethanol at a time, well, your body can handle that. But too much, definitely a problem there. Of course, also the liver is very important locally. Without liver, we could not have a liver mush festival. Pancreas. This secretes additional enzymes and also hormones. It's especially important in regulating the amount of glucose. Again, glucose is the most popular thing for your glycolysis in your cells to start putting stuff into the mitochondria to get energy, make ADP. You need lots of ADP, so having plenty of glucose is good, but too much is a problem as well. Maintaining the right balance, homeostasis, pancreas is very important in that. If it's not working, you can get problems like diabetes. Pancreas also is a big player in secreting enzymes that neutralize acid. Your stomach, very acidic. That moves into the intestine. The intestine does not need loads of acid there, and so you need to neutralize that acid. Again, strong acid in the stomach. That's a good way to kill any nasty stuff that happens to be on your food, as well as getting a start to breaking down the substance of the food and chemicals in it. Now, of course, the digestive system is also regulated by both the nervous system for relatively quick things and hormones for longer term patterns. How hungry you are, things like that do relate to both information gathered by your nerves and longer term chemicals in the blood circulating, triggering different responses. Here's a picture. This part right here is the stomach. Slightly darker red over here is the liver. And then here's the pancreas. So these are all closely associated. There's gallbladder tucked in up under the liver for these systems. And then here's the start of the small intestine. Okay, so between the stomach, with the mechanical churning, with the breakdown due to acid, we have a start on our enzymes, then in the duodenum, the first part of the small intestine, we're getting the enzyme breakdown, the chemical digestion largely happening there. Now we've finally broken up our proteins into amino acids or maybe short polypeptides. Our starches are broken down into sugars. Our lipids broken up as well. Now they are ready to be absorbed. So these have to go through the cell membranes of the cells in the villi. This may be passive or active transport. Passive transport, well, there's more food on the inside than in the body, so it will tend to diffuse from the more concentrated inside the intestine into the cells in many cases. But there are some things that you really want to get out of the food, and so you have special active transport to grab onto those molecules and carry them in. Once they're in, they get transferred to blood and or lymph to carry through the body for use in the cells and sometimes some further processing. Amino acids, those are polar. We have polar or non-polar side groups, but the amino acid by itself is definitely polar because it's got the amino and the acid in. And those are definitely polar, whatever the art group off the side is. Likewise, our simple sugars, they've got all those OH groups that are quite polar. So those are going to mix well with water. They're hydrophilic. Those will involve different style of transport. They have to have help getting across the cell membrane because the cell membrane, of course, is nonpolar on the inside, made of those phospholipids. Lipids can diffuse through a cell membrane, being nonpolar. Again, once they're in the blood or lymph, they're largely carried to the liver and storing and processing released as needed there. The remaining material that wasn't digested, or maybe it was broken down somewhat but hasn't been absorbed, that goes on into the large intestine. The large intestine does have bacteria in there that produce some key vitamins. A lot of our vitamin K and some of the B vitamins are actually produced by bacteria living inside us, and then the intestine absorbs those. It also does quite a lot of absorbing the water. Plenty of water helps wash things along, move through the system, but because we live on land, you can't just be drinking water all the time. You can get dried out, and so the body has ways of saving water, such as absorbing a lot of the water out of the food bits in the large intestine. Also picks up minerals such as sodium that were in the fluids. Tries to hang on to enough sodium. Of course, too much sodium, you don't want that, but maintain the balance. You do lose sodium, it dissolves in water, and so can be lost from the body